All right, let's chat to Gerbrand Smit from NEFG. Thank you for joining us. And we have to start with MTN. So quite a significant loss because of what happened in Nigeria. But this jump, is it all about dividends?
I think the dividend has something to do with it. They said they're going to keep R7 dividend in play for the year, which put it on about a 5.5, 6 dividend yield. So while you wait for the company to with new management, etc., to come right and bring back the profits, you actually get paid to sit there. And most people probably thought they're going to cut the dividends, and they were surprised by the dividend announcement today.
Well, was it the right announcement, the right choice?
I think so. Look, it's still cash plus businesses. These are once-off happenings with fines, etc. And if you strip out all the once-off things that went over the last year wrong with MTN, it comes to about 10.50 or 11 Rand a share. If you put that back into MTN, you're certainly seeing profits of about 12 to 14 Rand for the next year. That puts it on a PE of about 10 and a decent dividend yield with new management, etc. in there. It certainly looks on the cheapy side.
Okay, so you're saying it's still a good bet because there's been a lot of debate about MTN. Is there also relief because this was a once-off fine? It is now behind them, although they do still face this investigation about moving money allegedly, illegally out of the country. The chair saying that's not true. But are their woes really over in this huge market?
I think so. The oil price is still something that needs to recover a little bit for the Naira to actually come right in Nigeria. So Nigeria is still facing headwinds. That's about a third of their business. It used to be about 40% of their business. Certainly had some headwinds. Iran is doing well, and South Africa. And if you look at the new numbers that they're projecting, they're looking at adding more than 8 million new subscribers for 2017. So that's about 3.5% of business. Which is not too bad. You see a lot of these bigger multinational companies in different fields that came out with actually negative revenue growth or volume growth, where MTN is actually looking at some positive numbers there.
Last question on MTN. If you are an investor, is it a huge risk, though, the relationship with the Nigerian government, given xenophobic attacks here and MTN wanting to list there, get Nigerians themselves believing in this company? But could it go horribly wrong?
That's probably some of the threats and risks that's priced into the share price. Remember, the share price was north of 240 Rand a few years back, and when everything started going wrong with a specific company, it seems like everything has turned against MTN, and that's probably the time you actually buy some of these quality assets at depressed levels. We're not saying it's the greatest businesses going forward. We already think that cell phone companies has reached maturity phase and it's probably on a declining phase because data is getting cheaper, calls are getting cheaper, and so forth. But still, I think at 120 Rand or 110 Rand a share where it was over the last year and a half, or last 6 months, you certainly a nice buying opportunity.
All right, Standard Bank, what about that? Headline earnings up 4%. Also, investors seem very happy there, and we know the banks have been under such pressure and scrutiny lately.
It just shows you that sometimes it's the places to actually buy these shares when there's a lot of pressure and headlines are wrong with these companies. Standard Bank trades at about a 10p before today's results on a 5.5 dividend yield. It came out with decent numbers, 4% growth on headline earnings per share side. Liberty dragged them down a little bit, but Liberty used to be about 10% of profit last year. It's now 4%, so can't get dragged much lower than that. And I think the people were thinking that's going to have more of an effect on Standard Bank's figures. And they actually increased their dividend by 16%. Markets do like that, and you saw that in the reaction today on the market.
And does this mean that investors don't believe the banks will be hit by these huge fines, 10% of turnover, etc.?
Now look, that's a very small part of their business, so I won't believe that they can actually do it on the whole turnover. It should be on that specific trading desk, etc. And it probably won't be too bad. It's anyway once off in nature, so it shouldn't be part of your valuation on a company like Standard Bank.
That seems to be the sentiment. Yeah. Okay, let's look at our Rand, which is quite significantly over 13 Rand to the dollar. We saw it stronger yesterday. Is this all because the dollar is strong?
I think so. We had some trade numbers out in the week as well that was a bit disappointing on a deficit side, where we had surpluses on the current account side over the last few months. So that's a bit of a weakness for the week, I think. And then the dollar is strong because they're pricing in the next interest rate move in March in the States. Numbers coming out from the US are very strong. We saw manufacturing numbers yesterday that was and record highs. So yeah, you're probably pricing in that, and it's probably right to price in some of those interest rate hikes at the moment.
Not much has changed though, and yesterday we were stronger. Was that about the good manufacturing data, China, or do you think markets were quite happy with what Trump had to say?
Yeah, look, I think yesterday was a risk-on day. So you saw markets everywhere going up by 1.5%. And on risk-on days, emerging markets get benefited as well with some inflows, and that influence our currency. But certainly, I think Trump has had a good speech. I'd like to see...
Well, not a bad speech,
yeah,
I guess.
Yeah. So I'd like to see actually how they get to their numbers and how they actually can have all the money to spend where he wants to spend, because I think there's a mathematical problem in the back on these numbers at the moment. And people might be disappointed that these things take a bit longer than what they aiming for. So you might see a bit of a pullback in the US markets. We think so, certainly. We had a 15% rally from the time he has been elected and so forth. So a lot of hype around it. It takes more time than what people think, and I think people are going to get disappointed in the next month or two, and you're going to see a bit of a pullback globally. But that's our view.
Let's watch and see. We'll hold you to that. Thank you very much, Gerbrand Smit from NEFG, and that's a wrap from us at the JSE.